Newark to the world. Subscribe now to the Hot 97 YouTube channel. It's Ebro in the Morning with Laura Stiles and Rosenberg.
Ladies and gentlemen, Ebro, Laura Rosenberg, give it up. Running for the West Ward of Newark, yes?
Yes, sir. Running for West Ward.
Chigozie Onyema is on the program right now. Voting in Newark is May 10th next week.
Yep, Tuesday.
We had Mayor Ross Baraka on. We had Dupre Kelly on. Dupre Kelly's running for which?
The West Ward. We're running.
You guys are running at each other, toe to toe.
Yes.
Dupre, we got your mans up here, son.
Yeah, it's 6 of us in the field, though.
It's really. Yep. And where are things polling right now?
Well, it's hard to say. You know, there aren't any formal polls, but from knocking on these doors and talking to folks, we feel really good.
What is it about the West Ward of Newark that makes it such a contested battle here?
Well, I think it's an open seat. So the incumbent's not running again. But I also think the West Ward is special. I mean, it's a largely residential neighborhood. It's extremely diverse. You have a lot of immigrant communities, black folks, Puerto Ricans, Dominicans. So I think it's a special community in that way. But I think probably the open seat is what kind of gets 6 candidates in a race.
Now, are you from that neighborhood?
I'm actually from the Central Ward initially. So I'm from Newark, but from the Central Ward originally. Moved around a little bit. Moved to Maplewood for some time. Went to D.C., went to Howard University, went to New York, went to law school there, and then came back. So, yeah.
This contested seat in the West Ward, as you said, an open seat. The mayor, Ross Baraka, on his ticket is Dupre Kelly.
Yes.
What is your relationship like with the mayor?
We have a good relationship. I helped the mayor in 2014, so he ran for mayor in 2014. I was on his campaign. I was an attorney for the campaign. Worked in his administration for a little bit, and we have a pretty good relationship.
So why he didn't pick you for his ticket?
You know, that's a better question for him. I'm not really sure. I know that we feel like we're the most qualified candidate in the race, and we think we bring a lot of energy. We think we bring some new vision to the West Ward. But,
why most qualified?
Well, I think it's a few things. I think part of it is like the question of credentials. You know, I think education and credentials matter, but it's really how we use what we learn to serve people. So when I came out of law school, the first thing I did was I served as a staff attorney for the New Jersey Institute for Social Justice, and there we worked on criminal justice reform. Because at the time I graduated law school, the book The New Jim Crow was just coming out. And so I think a whole generation of us were just starting to see how the criminal justice system and mass incarceration was really a reflection of, the legacy of slavery and Jim Crow. So we were trying to figure out what we could do about it. And so one of the first pieces of legislation I worked on was something called Ban the Box. And what that did was it removed the box on an employment application that asks if you have a criminal conviction, with the whole idea being that if folks are coming home from prison and we don't want them to return to prison, we got to make sure that they have access to good paying jobs. And so we hope that we achieve some of that. We passed that bill in Newark, eventually passed it as the Opportunity to Compete Act in the state of New Jersey.
So let's say you were elected, right? Where do you want to prioritize funding? What are the top things that are most important for you? Yeah,
I think housing. I think housing in Newark is a real issue. In fact, there were a couple of reports that just came out, but one is saying that the city of Newark has a significant affordable housing gap. So we need another 16,000 units in Newark in order to meet the affordability challenge that we have in the city. And the study also says that about 3,500 of those units have to come in the West Ward. So I think what we'll try to do is try to get some of these abandoned homes back on the tax rolls.
You talking to Queen Latifah? She building a new...
She is building some new housing. I think Queen Latifah's project is fantastic. It's affordable.
It's going to help the West Ward? Is it going to help?
No, it's not necessarily going to help the West Ward, but I think that projects like that are the kinds of projects that we need throughout the entire city. So I think neighborhoods in the West Ward, South Ward, Central Ward, whatever, I think we need those kinds of projects. So we got to bring some small developers into the process, whether it's folks like Queen Latifah or whether it's just other people in the community who want to get involved in building affordable housing.
Have you ever considered trying to round up Dupre Kelly's former bandmates in Lords of the Underground? Maybe you show up with Mr. Funky or Lord Jazz and blindside.
I dare you to come out and say, I'm the chief rocker.
Right. And then you come out and say, matter of fact, I'm going to show you I'm the chief rocker. Boom, I got your old bandmates right here.
Oh, you want to go straight beef?
Well,
it's wrestling.
Maybe 8 p.m. when the polls close on May 10th, we'll play something.
Now, have you guys, and we're only asking about Dupre because, of course, he's the other candidate we're familiar with. Have you guys known each other? Do you know him at all from community efforts?
I know him a little bit. I mean, every time we cross paths, he's been extraordinarily kind. I think Dupre's a really good guy. I'm not super familiar with him, but we have crossed paths, and he's always been a good brother, always been stand-up.
And you're a little young to appreciate the first Lords of the Underground album.
A little bit, yeah. But I mean, I am familiar with Chief Rocker.
Okay,
but,
of course you are. I mean, come on now.
What about Funky Job?
I'm familiar with it, but only as an adult familiar with it, right? I kind of listened to some of it as an adult.
Right.
But
got it.
I can't say that was my generation's music.
No.
Chigozie Onyema,
Yes, sir.
Nigerian, first
Nigerian.
generation.
First generation, yeah.
Shout to
Yes,
Africa.
sir.
Nigeria hot right now. Let's be honest, Nigeria is hot right now.
It is.
Crazy.
It
Do you
is.
feel it? Can you feel the energy that there's a lot of like momentum around Nigerian artists in our industry? It's every managers,
music, everywhere.
people in power positions, like
But
Nigerians.
everywhere, even in the medical field, even
Medical
everywhere.
field, the legal profession. I
Legal.
think the one place we probably aren't is electoral politics. So I think we have an opportunity to change that on May 10th. But yeah, I do feel the energy, man. I do feel it.
Did you grow up in a traditional Nigerian household?
Traditional in the sense that I had two Nigerian parents. Okay. They were very serious about education.
So that sounds traditional.
That's right.
That's traditional
You probably
Nigerian.
wanted to make music or beats or something. They was like, nah, you about to get this law degree.
There were very
fam.
few professions that we had access to growing up.
In your
right?
household.
That's right. That's right.
Doctor, lawyer,
That's
accountant.
right. And even when I went to law school, I mean, even my choice not to work at a law firm was a big deal, right? So I decided to work in the nonprofit sector. I worked, I said earlier, it's a staff attorney. So they were kind of like, wait, what
Mom
are you
kissed your
doing?
teeth like,
Nonprofit.
Absolutely.
They probably didn't even tell people they had a son anymore. They were like, we don't want to talk about what he's doing.
but in that tradition of family and growing up in Newark and Maplewood and in between and all of that, talk about how important that family dynamic is, though, and conveying that to young people and families in Newark who are working hard every day to keep their family units together and, like you said, keep a roof over their head.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's incredibly important, man. When I think about education, the first person that comes to mind is my father. So, oddly enough, my father transitioned 2 years ago today. But I think about him, and thank you, brother. My father checked my homework every single day after school up until about sixth grade. So every single day I did my homework, I sat down with him and we went over every single thing I was supposed to do that day. And that's kind of my introduction to education. That's what sort of like, there's a level of seriousness around schooling and stuff that I think that I've carried with me really through everything that I do. So I think one, having engaged parents are critically important. And also just, creating a situation where parents' needs are met so that they can be as engaged with their children as they want to be or they need to be.
The other piece of that too is how of fathers being engaged with their children is the mental health and stability and kind of feeling of purpose that can be instilled in black men, but also could be broken in this society in black men.
For sure.
For you, are you married, kids?
No, I'm single right now.
Single?
No children.
Is that something that, as being if you get this job, representing the West Ward and representing Newark, how are you going to engage with black men of the community in a way that's constructive and uplifting and kind of fortifying and giving that kind of reassurance? Because that's one of the big things in our society is black men feeling broke down and mental health and, depression and dealing with that.
Absolutely. I think that's a great question. I think it's something that kind of gets overlooked when we think about our role as leaders or elected officials. But I think for me, it's bringing the men in the community together. Because I think, when you think about some of the challenges Newark faces, right, whether it's violence, whether it's the fact, I mentioned housing a little bit earlier, I think there's a significant role that men can play in a community. So I think, one, we want to try to figure out how to put together some anti-violence efforts that includes the men in our community. Let them know that you're sort of an agent for change. The world doesn't sort of happen to us. We can happen on the world. And if we organize some of these black men and women around some of the things that we want in the world, I think we can see a difference. So I think bringing them in together is critical.
What is your first 100 days? A lot of politicians get asked this question. I don't know how many politicians actually meet their goals in the first 100 days, but let's ask the kind of softball political question of what are you going to get done in your first 100 days?
I think for me, the first thing I want to work on is rebuilding some of the block associations and the neighborhood associations in Newark. I think that, the West Ward is a largely residential ward, and I think that we have some challenges, some really devastated blocks inside of the ward. So I think if we pull together some block associations and get some people really involved in what's happening, I think that'll bode really well for all of us because, it's not enough for like a handful of developers or a handful of people to shape the direction of the city. We think that everybody needs to be involved in that process. So if we want to deepen democracy and include more people, that means we need some organized associations for folks to sort of, participate in and be a part of. And for us, we think that looks like block associations. So that's what we want to do in the West Ward. And as we build those block associations, we can then use that as a space to maybe like, if we're thinking about affordable housing, instead of maybe just letting a developer build it, maybe we can figure out how to build some cooperatives. Maybe we can figure out how to do something called community land trusts, sort of the collective ownership of land that like is really, used to benefit or to sort of meet the needs of all the people in the community. So that's kind of some of what we want to do, man. We really, really want to talk about what deepening democracy looks like, not just politically, but economically as well.
Before we let you get up out of here, it's important that I ask. I know people were talking about some of the remarks you made at the end of your last debate. Can you sort of take us through what you said and let's let the people hear if they missed it?
Well, we just kind of talked. We just wanted to like sort of drive home the point that we're the most qualified candidate in the race. I think there's a lot of conversations about what it takes to be an elected official, what we need to be an elected official, and we think that preparation is important. And we think that given the 6 candidates who are out there, I think there are some differences of opinion about who's the most qualified in the race. But I think that there is, I do think there's a shared understanding around who might not have had the level of preparation as the rest of us. So that's kind of what we were trying to drive home.
I kind of gather he didn't say it like that, though.
Yeah, it sounds like you cleaned this up.
It wouldn't have been a topic if you said it like that. Well, how did you actually say it? Do you want us to go get the audio? Or do you want to?
I think, we just try to drive home the point that we think we're the best. We think we
You hit him with a DJ Khaled?
We hit him with a,
we the best.
We hit him with a little diss record, I guess they call it.
It was a mini diss record at the debate. Wow.
Check the credentials, fam.
Check the creds.
That's it.
I'm the choice.
I think so. I think people are seeing that. I think you mentioned earlier that the brother has the support of the mayor, which God bless him for. But I think yes. When we talk about what folks in the community are saying, we think we got a lot of support, and we think folks see that. So,
well, listen, I respect. Did you go? Is that a half Windsor or a full Windsor for your not there?
That's a half.
That's a half, right?
That's a half.
That's half Windsor.
That's a half.
Yeah, this is the only way I know how to tie.
You don't know. You just go again one time, get to the full. You know what I mean?
You don't want
to make it kind of short though.
Nah, you just gotta.
You have to adjust.
I like the half.
Like the half?
I'm a full Windsor kind of guy. I feel like I got a big
Styles.
face and head, so if I gotta have a knot that matches the size
You
of
wear
my
a
face.
tie once every 7
and
years.
I go full Windsor.
Every time.
Chigozie Onyema, give it up one time. Run the
Next
Westport
week,
North.
next Tuesday.
Yeah,
Next
May
Tuesday,
10th.
May 10th, my ballot position is C5.
Nice meeting you, man.
Nice
Pleasure.
meeting
Great to
brother.
meet you.
Thank
Good luck.
Thank you.